We're breaking into programming to bring you breaking news. A beautiful, clear Monday morning, but New England has experienced an earthquake.
So this is a once-in-5-year earthquake.
It started as an anomaly, an unexplained series of magnetic readings deep beneath the rural expanse of western Massachusetts. The instruments weren't meant to pick up anything unusual. They were part of a routine geological survey, collecting data on subterranean mineral compositions and seismic fault lines for infrastructure development. But what they detected wasn't part of any known natural phenomenon. Within days, the readings intensified, growing in pattern and frequency, echoing with a rhythmic pulse that almost mimicked a biological signature. By the time a team of researchers from multiple disciplines was dispatched to investigate, the energy signature had evolved into something more coherent, almost intelligent in form. What they found there would go on to upend long-held assumptions about geology, biology, and even the nature of consciousness itself. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The site in question was a rocky outcropping tucked away in a densely forested part of Berkshire County, an area known for its serene natural beauty but hardly associated with scientific upheaval. What made this particular location stand out wasn't just the bizarre magnetic anomalies, it was the way the surrounding environment responded to them. Trees within a 50-foot radius of the epicenter began exhibiting signs of accelerated growth, their trunks thickening and twisting in unnatural spirals. Small animals, usually abundant in the area, had fled entirely, leaving behind a kind of eerie stillness. Even the insects had vanished. To those first on the scene, it felt as though the earth itself was holding its breath. Digging into the ground only revealed more questions. Beneath the surface lay a chamber, not quite natural, not quite artificial. Its interior was lined with a material no one could identify, smooth to the touch, metallic in sheen, yet non-reactive to any form of analysis. It pulsed with a steady, low-frequency hum, like a heartbeat reverberating through the stone. Whatever this chamber was, it had been undisturbed for what radiocarbon dating estimated to be over 100,000 years, predating any known civilization in the region. This timeline shattered existing narratives about human and pre-human activity on the continent. The chamber didn't match anything associated with glacial activity, tectonic processes, or ancient construction. It stood outside of history, entirely unique. Inside the chamber, scientists discovered a central structure, vaguely obelisk-like, but not hewn by any recognizable tool. It emitted a soft glow, shifting in color as researchers moved around it. Strangely, any electronic devices brought too close would either malfunction or record vast amounts of data in indecipherable formats, strings of symbols that didn't match any known language, mathematical model, or code structure. Linguists, mathematicians, and cryptographers joined the growing field team, drawn in by the implications. What if this was a message, not merely an artifact but a communication? The physical properties of the obelisk defied categorization. It was made from a lattice-like material that wasn't any known element on the periodic table. Attempts to remove a sample failed, tools simply bounced off or dissolved into useless fragments. Spectrographic analysis couldn't penetrate its structure, as though the object was rejecting scrutiny on a fundamental level. Yet it interacted with its environment in subtle, undeniable ways. Soil near the structure changed composition over time, becoming more nutrient-rich without any organic input. Airborne particles slowed near the obelisk, and light bent ever so slightly around its edges, creating a minor lensing effect more commonly associated with gravitational anomalies in deep space. All of this suggested one thing. This wasn't merely an object embedded in the Earth, it was an entity, or at least a vessel of something alive or aware. As scientists continued to examine it, they began to experience vivid dreams. Strange landscapes filled with geometric patterns and colors that didn't exist in the known spectrum. Some reported hearing a low, melodic hum even after leaving the site, a frequency that resonated deep in the chest, inducing simultaneous calm and unease. Others reported experiencing sudden bursts of insight into unsolved equations, only to forget them moments later. The object wasn't just passive, it was interacting with them on levels they didn't yet understand. As word spread within the scientific community, specialized teams from quantum physics, neurology, and even philosophy arrived to study the phenomenon. There was no consensus on what the structure was. Some speculated it was a probe from an advanced civilization, either alien or ancient human. Others thought it might be an interface left by an intelligence beyond our comprehension, a form of life not defined by biology but by energy and structure. A few ventured even further, suggesting it might be an extension of the planet itself, a kind of Gaia-like intelligence embedded in Earth's crust, choosing this moment in time to reveal itself. The implications of the discovery rippled outward like shockwaves. If this structure was artificial, who or what had made it, and why had it remained dormant for so long? Its sudden activation seemed timed with rising global temperatures, increased seismic activity, and magnetic pole drift. Was it a warning system, a failsafe, or perhaps a trigger? No one knew. Theories flourished, each more provocative than the last. Some postulated that the structure was responding to human thought itself, acting like a cognitive mirror, reflecting not our physical presence but our mental activity. This would explain the dreams, the sudden bursts of intuition, and the electronic data that read like a collage of human languages and logic systems blended together. Further investigations revealed something even more startling. Embedded in the chamber walls were fine filaments, thread-like structures that seemed organic but functioned like superconductors. These filaments extended far beyond the chamber itself, weaving through the bedrock in a complex web. Ground-penetrating radar suggested that this network extended for miles in every direction, forming a geometric lattice not unlike a neural network. Whatever the structure was, it wasn't isolated. It was part of something larger, something connected, and it had been there, buried and silent, beneath Massachusetts for millennia, waiting. This lattice began to emit its own signals, short bursts of electromagnetic pulses that aligned with no known communication protocol. Yet when researchers began to analyze the patterns, they noticed correlations with patterns found in brain activity, particularly during REM sleep and states of deep meditation. The object wasn't merely reflecting consciousness, it was interfacing with it. For some, this confirmed the theory that the structure was sentient or at least part of a larger sentient system. It was adapting to human cognition, altering its output based on their attempts to understand it. Each day brought a new data point, a new anomaly, a new mystery. The land around the site began to change as well. Plants native to the area began exhibiting unusual traits. Leaves with iridescent surfaces, roots growing in intricate spirals, even rudimentary patterns on their bark that mirrored the data symbols from the obelisk. Environmental scientists noted a distinct increase in biodiversity and a shift in atmospheric quality. Higher oxygen levels, lower airborne pollutants. The area had become a microecology, distinct from the world around it, as though the structure was terraforming its surroundings or healing them. The question then became, was this discovery an isolated event or the first of many? Satellite scans began searching for similar anomalies around the globe. A few promising leads emerged: unusual magnetic signatures in the Himalayas, unexplained geothermal activity in the Amazon basin, and ancient cave symbols in Australia that, when viewed through certain spectrums, mirrored the patterns emitted by the Massachusetts obelisk. The idea of a global network, perhaps a planetary consciousness, fragmented and hidden, gained traction. The possibility that Earth itself contained these nodes, ancient and dormant, now stirring, was no longer science fiction. It was the leading hypothesis. What disturbed and fascinated scientists in equal measure was the notion that this had been here all along, beneath their feet, beneath their instruments, silently watching or listening. The discovery shook more than just the scientific world. It struck at the core of human understanding. What does it mean to be alone in the universe? What if the intelligence we've been searching for in the stars was beneath us the entire time? What if Earth is not just a habitat but a collaborator in our evolution? The structure's silence became a kind of communication in itself. It resisted analysis not by accident, but by design. It taught through mystery, through implication, nudging humanity toward new ways of thinking. This forced a re-evaluation of what intelligence even means. Must it speak in words, or can it echo in waves, symbols, and ecosystems? Could sentience arise from pattern, from structure alone? And if so, have we been walking alongside such sentience for millennia, oblivious to its presence? Engineers and quantum theorists were particularly intrigued by the object's apparent ability to manipulate reality on a fundamental level. Some speculated it operated using principles beyond quantum mechanics, perhaps what theoretical physicists have termed post-quantum interactions, a realm where information, intention, and matter might be interlinked. If true, the implications for energy, technology, even time perception would be immense. More remarkably, they seem to modulate in response to atmospheric changes, barometric pressure, solar radiation, and even the lunar cycle. Earth itself was part of the equation. The implication was clear. This thing was attuned not only to the planet, but to the larger cosmic environment. That was when astrophysicists joined the investigation. They began comparing the pulse data with cosmic background radiation patterns and deep space signal archives. Shockingly, there were weak correlations, microbursts from distant quasars, decayed neutrino trails from supernovae, and gravitational waves mapped from black hole collisions. The pulses from the Minnesota site had mirrored elements of these deep space phenomena, albeit on a slower, earthbound scale. Some began to wonder, could this buried structure be part of a much older system, one meant to synchronize Earth with signals from the distant universe? Was it a receiver? Or worse, was it preparing to transmit? While surface-level biological effects were already raising eyebrows, a more unsettling phenomenon emerged underground. As core samples were extracted from deeper strata surrounding the primary site, geologists observed materials that should not coexist. Sedimentary layers typically form gradually over thousands or millions of years, compacting in order. But here there were abrupt interruptions in stratification. Compressed layers of ancient soil suddenly transitioned into ultra-fine crystalline matrices that bore no resemblance to any natural formation. These segments were perfectly flat, less than a millimeter thick, and bore no fossil content, only a repeating geometric pattern only visible under polarized light. The consistency of their shape and distribution suggested artificial origin, yet they were interspersed between wholly natural geological epochs. Microscopy revealed something even more bizarre. These crystal layers reflected specific frequencies of light in organized patterns like a storage medium. Each sample responded to a different spectrum: infrared, ultraviolet, gamma. It was like unearthing a hard drive embedded in Earth's crust, one that operated on optical encoding at a quantum level. Computational biologists and materials scientists spent weeks mapping these patterns, attempting to translate them. Initial algorithms yielded no coherent language, but machine learning models trained on ancient symbolic systems, from linear A to Vinca script, began to highlight unexpected overlaps. The structure wasn't just storing data, it was embedding context in a format humans could one day learn to read. The notion of data storage on a planetary scale was controversial but increasingly difficult to refute. It forced a re-evaluation of the timeline of intelligence on Earth. Had something, or someone, anticipated the rise of a sentient decoding species? Could the structure have been designed with the knowledge that one day a form of life would evolve to be curious enough to dig, advanced enough to compute, and cautious enough to question? With this in mind, teams began deploying neuroimaging equipment near the primary site, not on the structure, but on the human observers. What they found defied rational explanation. Researchers who spent prolonged time in proximity to the formation experienced unusual neurological phenomena, increased theta and gamma brainwave activity, a tendency towards synchronized firing in regions associated with pattern recognition, empathy, and even precognition. More startlingly, their EEG readings began to align with the rhythmic pulses recorded underground. The humans were beginning to entrain to the structure's frequency. This synchronization didn't manifest as hallucination or delirium. On the contrary, many described a sharpened sense of insight, an enhanced perception of environmental systems, even a kind of euphoria laced with reverence. These reports were dismissed by some as placebo or psychosomatic effects, but the measured neurological changes were consistent and reproducible. MRI scans confirmed transient increases in connectivity between the prefrontal cortex and the pineal region. It was as if the structure was triggering a dormant capacity in the human brain, one not tied to language or logic, but to harmonic perception. Meanwhile, something equally dramatic was happening in the skies above the site. Atmospheric scientists detected a consistent auroral anomaly above Minnesota, even during solar quiet periods. Normally, auroras are driven by charged particles from solar flares colliding with Earth's magnetosphere, but these new patterns occurred without any such cause. They formed concentric rings, symmetric to the magnetic readings underground, and followed the same rhythmic intervals as the pulses. Spectrographic analysis showed elevated emissions in the ultraviolet and soft X-ray bands, signals that, when mapped, formed radial geometries echoing those found in the buried lattice structures. Electromagnetic experts hypothesized that the auroral anomalies were a side effect of localized magnetoelectric coupling, a phenomenon not observed at this scale on Earth before. The buried structure wasn't just emitting pulses, it was modulating the ionosphere. Earth's upper atmosphere had become a canvas, briefly and subtly altered, suggesting communication on a planetary scale. If it was a beacon, who or what was meant to see it? Some theorists turned to the Fermi paradox. The contradiction between the high probability of extraterrestrial life and the lack of evidence suddenly seemed a little less confusing. Perhaps intelligent signals hadn't been absent. Perhaps Earth had been broadcasting all along, just not in any way humans had understood until now. And what if Earth itself had been part of a dormant network awaiting activation? The structure in Minnesota could be the first of many such keys, timed not by human calendars but by planetary phase states, magnetic reversals, climate thresholds, biological markers. The activation of this system might not mark an end but a beginning. As evidence mounted, cultural implications began to seep into the discussion. The idea that Earth may be part of a pre-existing cosmic architecture challenged long-held assumptions in both science and philosophy. If the Earth was seeded with intelligent design, not in the theological sense, but as a medium for informational growth, what did it say about the role of humanity? Were humans caretakers, beneficiaries, or simply catalysts meant to trigger a larger awakening? And crucially, was this activation sequence unfolding naturally, or had it been accelerated by human interference with climate and geology? As global interest surged, other regions began independent investigations, searching for similar signals or structures. Early reports from Antarctica hinted at subterranean magnetic signatures that mirrored those in Minnesota, though buried beneath miles of ancient ice. Meanwhile, in the Atacama Desert, a group of amateur geophysicists detected a harmonic resonance during a seismic event that matched the Fibonacci-modulated frequency recorded in Minnesota. These discoveries hinted at a global network, one whose nodes had lain dormant, hidden in inaccessible regions until the conditions aligned. Minnesota had simply been the first to reach activation. Despite the vast implications, no direct threat had emerged from the discovery. No cataclysm, no weaponization, no overt entity revealing itself. But the feeling among those involved was not one of relief. It was one of anticipation. The structure was awakening slowly, methodically, and it seemed to be aware, not conscious in any human sense, but responsive, intentional. A mindless machine doesn't adapt, evolve, or wait for environmental cues for tens of thousands of years. This was something else. Something that had embedded itself in the very architecture of the planet, waiting for the right alignment to emerge. By now, disciplines that had never previously intersected, quantum computing, geobiology, ancient linguistics, psychoacoustics, were being merged in an attempt to decipher a system far more interdisciplinary than anyone had expected. It was becoming increasingly clear that no single field could understand what was unfolding. The structure, the pulses, the biological awakening, the atmospheric modulation, all these were components of an ecological intelligence. Earth, long thought of as merely a home to life, might itself be an interface, a relay, a participant in something far vaster. What truly stunned even the most open-minded researchers was the growing realization that perhaps humanity had not just stumbled onto this system accidentally. The rise of civilization, the pursuit of understanding, even the technological leaps of the last century, all may have been anticipated. It was a recursive loop of development and discovery, like a puzzle box that could only be unlocked by a species capable of asking the right questions. And now, the lock had been picked. The box was opening. The event in Minnesota will remain one of the most profound enigmas of the modern age, not because of what was found, but because of what it implies. There is no going back from a discovery like this. It changes everything. Humanity's sense of history, its place in the cosmos, its understanding of intelligence and intention. The Earth is no longer just a cradle of life. It may be a designed stage, a living repository, a message in a bottle cast across the universe's sea of time, now finally beginning to sing. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on what just emerged in Minnesota? What do you expect? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.